Uh, Thank you very much, Anand, for agreeing to speak at a session today. And welcome to all the participants who have joined in and who will join in the course of time in the next 5 minutes. And also to our distinguished speaker, Anand Prakash Jangir.
Yes, sir.
Today is the 28th session,
Wow.
which we are holding, Analytics Wednesday, which is every Wednesday that we are holding for the past 28 weeks. We have been able to hold a session thanks to distinguished speakers like Anand. So, who have agreed to come and share their knowledge with all the participants. Sama Audit Systems and Software Private Limited, as you said, as everybody knows, is at the forefront of audit technology, bringing audit technology to the auditors in the country, to finance professionals, forensic professionals. Sama Audit started very early in this area, 19-20 years back, when nobody was talking about analytics in the country. We also deal with LSA, which is the continuous control monitoring, and since April, Sama Audit has also been entrusted by Caseware to supply the Caseware working papers for statutory audits in the country. So it's a end-to-end solution for statutory auditors, and with NEFRA and other regulations and compliances, I think it becomes necessary for statutory auditors to use such a solution. This session is supported by the Government of Canada Trade Commissioner Service. Early on, pre-COVID, we used to hold sessions in the High Commission in Delhi, where we could physically have Anand there and Satish Chenna there, and we could have participants there. But now we are on the online mode. So, but the Trade Commissioner Service said, yeah, we would like to support you. So this session is supported by them. The series is supported by them. I would like to formally introduce my dear friend Anand. So, let me take the pleasure of introducing him formally to all of you. This is also being streamed live on YouTube, and this will remain there on the Sama YouTube channel, so people can learn from what is being taught today, what has been spoken today, deliberated today. About Anand Prakash Jangir, he is a managing partner, AJA. He's a passionate evangelist for tech-based disruption in audit and finance domain. He's a professionally a chartered accountant and a CISA, Certified Information Systems Auditor. He's a managing partner, AJA, focuses on forensic audit, IS audit, fraud analytics, and blockchain for internal audit function. He was part of risk management team at Goldman Sachs, covering multiple audits across a lot of geography for different functions in the organization. His areas of specialization were forex audit, DP audits, anti-money laundering, Basel II, BCP, and operational risk. Everything which is currently required by any good professional today. Prior to Goldman Sachs, he was with the ES Consulting Group at Infosys Technologies, Bangalore. He was involved in the development of regulatory compliance framework for various compliances like SOX, and was part of the team developing solution for Basel II Accord implementation for the banking sector. His responsibilities included working in sync with project of Infosys Consulting Dallas. He is involved in ERA, Enterprise Risk Management implementation and IT audit for many international projects at USA, UK, Japan, China, etc. His professional interests, he's a visiting faculty for IIM Bangalore, teaching IS audit and fraud analytics, very dear to my heart, because prior to the new airport, I used to be a visiting faculty on risk management and continuous control monitoring. So he's a speaker at North American CACs and Euro CACs of ISACA, visiting faculty at ISACA, ICA, and Wellington. So I think in very short, I think we have introduced him, a multifaceted person and deep knowledge base. So let's ask Anand to please enlighten us, to please take us on this path so that we have more knowledge about the subject.
Thank you, Deepji sir, and it's a pleasure. And I won't say deep knowledge because we are just scratching the surface. It's actually a lot of interesting things which are coming up, and I just thought it would be great to share it with our professional, brethren, all the things which are the new things which are happening. So, I'll just share my screen so that I can take you to the presentation.
Sure, please.
Yeah. So I have now access. Let me share screen too. Okay. First of all, I should congratulate Deepji sir. This is interesting. Analytics Wednesday is like 28th, so I'm telling you it's great to share some of the thoughts with all of you.
Anand, just a small request.
Yes.
You have to speak a little loudly.
Okay, sure. I would be. So basically, I think I'm audible right now, proper.
A little loudly. I think it's the sound is a little on the lower side.
Okay, just 1 minute. I think I have to just change one setting on my this one, and I think it should. Yeah, I think I would be better now. Am I audible?
Absolutely. Now it's
okay.
Fine.
Great. I was using a headphone, so I have to set up the microphone setting there. I'm sorry. Yes. So great. Thanks, Deepji sir, for this opportunity. And I want to just share some of the thoughts. It's a 1 hour session, which is like, just covering it up. I don't want to have a death by PowerPoint and a lot of slides I have not created. So what is the idea? First of all, I'm sure I have your attention when I say the word Skynet. And anyone who had been a fan of Terminator series, remember the concept of Skynet. And Skynet used to be one of the things which is an autonomous computer which takes over the control of the whole world and initiate what we call it as a nuclear war. If you have seen the Terminator series, I'm a big fan of Terminator series, and that's how I build it up. But I would not want to talk about that in a negative way, because there it is like the villain of the whole thing. We are going to talk about the Skynet of what we call it as moving from what we have been learning for a long time, that data is there's analytics and all things. But what is happening is still we are actually doing our work in a mode where we need to still every time, it's basically digging a new well every time and then taking it from there, getting water from there and taking it up. Can we automate the whole process itself? So my thought process was more on the AI and ML, and that is what I'm going to deliberate upon. So the idea is to take you all through what's changing in the audit and finance landscape from the perspective of ML and AI. I'm going to use the word together. And especially on the ML side, do we have some use cases? I just thought it will be great that you can see some of them in action, that there are some really interesting model like isolation forest and all the things which you can actually apply in your day-to-day regular audit functions as well as our finance function. So that would be the kind of agenda. And on the last part, I would like to talk upon, this is my favorite area right now, and I'm writing a paper with one of the professor at IIM Bangalore on that. That is what we call it as auditing AI or algorithm. How do you audit the algorithms? Now, these are going to be the next problem statement which is coming for everyone, because the moment we went for RPA, robotic process automation, the first thing people started saying, okay, you have done a great job, you have automated that, but are there challenges? And audit teams, as we are known, and there is a kind of a joke which goes about that auditors are fault finding machines. We are very good in finding faults. Anything you give us to us, we'll tell our 5 things which you can be improve upon that. And if you ask us to implement it, we are not going to do that, but we can find the faults very easily. Now in RPA also, there has been a lot of things, a lot of risk which has come to the organization, which was earlier never thought of. So I would like to delve upon that. So quickly deep diving, because as I told you, I didn't want to have too much of death by PowerPoint. I just have some basic stuff which I wanted to discuss with. All of you will agree with me, and feel free to interrupt me at any point of time if you have any questions or any feedback or any comments. I would be more than happy to take it. We all know when we use the word Skynet, the term which comes to our mind is an artificial intelligence or an entity which is a powerful tool, but it's already happening around us. If you are using Siri, if you are using Alexa, if you're using a driving car like Tesla, there is some amount of AI which is already there. Now, can we do something of that sort, or can we leverage this in the finance and audit function? And we all have to understand one thing, as Deepji always says, it's not some magic, but it's a fundamental maths and stats which we are trying to talk about. So what can we do about that, and how do we do that? I'm sure, when I was I got into this field around 6 years back, especially on the ML side. And initially, if you have been, I'm sure a lot of you would have done some courses on ML. And the first thing they will teach you is how do you find a cat picture and a dog picture. They'll give you a data set of hundreds and thousands of dog picture, and you have to train a model and all the thing. Now, when I also 6, 7 years back, when I just got into that, and I was thinking, how does it make sense for me as an auditor or a finance professional to use it? And that exactly is the point which we have to understand. See, I think this is my personal view. I think audit functions and finance functions are going to become what I call as the purple people. If someone comes and asks me that, do I need to learn some programming language or I can hire an engineer? I would say this is going to be something like a fundamental. And, Deepji is there because earlier when we used to have idea and other thing, a lot of people used to be smart enough to know how to do the coding in, idea and other things. So they know what are the things which need to be worked out. And that is important. The fundamental logical thinking is important. And even in the Skynet era, the fundamentals remains the maths and stats fundamentals. And how do we use it in business decision making? And I would say it is more becoming not a data science, but decision science, which can be leveraged by audit functions as well as finance function. And I don't mind saying that I was doing one session sometime back at there is an Indian Institute of Petroleum Management, which is owned by Indian Oil Corporation. They are in Gurgaon. And if you go there at the reception, they have a very interesting mural on the back of the reception. They said, change, and then there are 3 dots, and they says, before you are forced to change. So either you have to change yourself or you are going to be forced, because I remember the time, because when I became a chartered accountant, there was a time when the moment trial balance tally, and DG would agree with me, our audit was over. The trial balance tallying used to be a big issue. And we have come a long way. So I had done my articleship in a small and medium firm, not a very large firm. So we have come from those days to where we are right now on automation, SAP GRC, and all that kind of stuff. But friends, we have to move. We have adapted, we have changed, and we have to move to the new era of the Skynet. I'm just quoting one of the very interesting survey which was done by the PwC. This was done for the global CFO survey they do. And they were actually talking about which are the technologies which are going to have a big impact. And if you see here, though initially in the near term, today we are seeing a lot of talks about RPA, and automation, they are telling that more movement is going to happen on basic AI and blockchain. And as we move forward, there is going to be a lot of impact, friends, which is going to come in the area of intermediate AI and in 3 to 5 year terms. So you can see the horizon. We are talking about next 4 to 5 years. We are going to have a disruption, which is going to be very interesting and amazingly great for all of us to see. It's not about, I don't want to talk about negative or what is going to happen to CAs and all. No, I'm not talking about that function. I'm saying the amount of insight we will have in the organization about what is happening, how it is happening, and how we can do better risk management. This is going to be amazing using this or leveraging these technologies which are there. And what are these technologies which are going to have it? See, this is, if you have at a very high level, if I have to talk about, what are the things these are helping us? They are helping us on the predictive value. I'll give you one example here very quickly. When I talk about predictive value, all of you heard about time series. We have all used time series at a different amount of time. Now, how can we use time series to know that what are the areas I need to focus in my audit universe? If I'm a large multinational company or a large conglomerate, and I have like around 30 subsidiaries, I want to know that, okay, where should I put my, we talk about risk-based audit, but is it like risk-based is all subjective matter, or it will be a very objective concept which we can bring it up? Now, when I'm talking about that, can we use time series to tell me that based on the last 3 years data, unless you take into account some black swan event like COVID and other thing, what should be the 4th year, financial statement should look like? And when I see an area of variance, and if the variance is higher than my cutoff or anything, don't you think I should be focusing on those areas and see why there is a big variance from what is the thing which is coming up? Because that is something which we call it as, okay, there is a great concept of time series. How do I apply it in my day-to-day stuff? Talking about A risk-based control. I'm a I got into all these things when SOX was a big thing, risk control metrics, RACM, and all the things started coming, and that used to be our life. And I'm talking about this something around 2003-4. I'm talking about that. Then, I hope all of you remember those days when there was a big thing of everything. People were telling this controls is required, that control, this preventive control, that preventive control, and your risk control metrics became a big thing. And I remember I was at Infosys at one point of time, and we were actually giving services to the client, which was like, how do you optimize your control? Because you have put so much of controls, now you have to optimize it up. So first you're going for that. But what has happened is we are still going back to the same thing and we are just working it out. Are this control testing can be automated with very fewer controls that which just says on a regular basis, I can actually map each of my risk control metrics to that. It can save a lot of time and effort. I know we have a big challenge right now happening of the big resignation things going on. Everywhere we have a big time of resignation, even in finance and audit function. I'm hearing a lot of my friends who are like saying, okay, I'm just want to, retire. I want to go to Goa. I want to start something new. So people are going out there, and what's going to happen is there are going to be a lot of, lack of resources is going to be a big challenge. So can I do a time saving? It's cost saving in terms of doing it, automating it up, because it's going to be one-time cost, and then I don't have to spend anything on that. And the fourth one, which is very interesting, ethics and secondary check, which is something which we'll all talk about in a manner earlier, which was more from a perspective of subjective matter to objective. So this is how AI is helping audit today. Go to the next section of that. I just wanted to talk about maybe 5 minutes on this concept of Audit 4.0, because I'm sure all of you are hearing a lot of that. And the genesis of this comes from the World Economic Forum's, concept of, Industry 4.0. I'm sure all of you have read about this book, Industry 4.0, which is by World Economic Forum. And they talk about that we had the first industrial revolution, which happened something around 1784, which was more of mechanizations and steam engines. Then we move into mass productions, assembly line. That was the second industrial revolution. And the second industrial revolution, which was there, it was basically, if you remember this movie from Charlie Chaplin, I'm not sure how many of you have seen that, Modern Times. It was an amazing movie, actually. And they show him going into the machine and all the things. That was in 1934, and that was a Modern Times and Industry 2.0. We moved to Industry 3, where a lot of automation happens, and we are today sitting at our home. We can actually book a railway ticket and all that kind of stuff. So that moved a long way. But what we are talking about, you see the dates here. Every revolution takes some time to mature. It is just like the beginning. We are right now at the beginning. They say from 2015, the Industrial Revolution 4.0 has already started. And it is talking about all these things of Internet of Things. The amount of data which is generated by machines, or we call the semantic web, is so much high that you really require to change your audit procedure to be able to use it. You have new networks which is coming. You have smart manufacturing coming. You have cyber physical system where you cannot basically differentiate between of them. Now, all these things can be used extensively. I have a friend of mine who's working at TCS, and he has the TCS Innovation Lab, and they have come out with one autonomous drone for stock taking, which is amazing. It's basically, you just leave it in a warehouse, and it scans all the codes and everything and give you a kind of a report. It's an autonomous. You don't require to have any GPS. So you are moving into a kind of a different use part, which is there. And this is increasing what we call it is our concept of Audit 4.0. Now, Audit 4.0 is about the new age enterprises. Our new age enterprises are changing. You have to admit that. The businesses are not having, there was a time when if I have to audit an organization, I go to their SAP system, their Oracle system, okay, everything is fine, amazing. But there are so many different systems which are there. How do I have a kind of a correlation between your marketing spend on your digital marketing vis-a-vis, how much spend was done? It's like basically two set of data I'm just trying to play around with. There are hundreds of other areas on CRM and other things which is working it out. So we are coming out from what we call it as a concept which has come. I would highly recommend you to read this is actually a research paper which is published called Imagining Audit 4.0. And it's easily available. Anyone can actually search it. So the author has clearly called up, and I'm just giving the, because the reference to the author, because this is coming from him. As per the author, the things, the cyber physical system, the smart product, the business processes, all of them are going to become what we call as a real-time system. It has a decentralized control, and you can't have the standard way of risk control metrics which we were actually using it on. And that leads to the audit and other expert to change the way how we look into that. Especially this part, which I wanted to talk about, which is a very interesting way of imagining how the audit of the future is going to come out. And I'm sure if you have been, hearing the agile audit concept at IIA, and there's a book which has been given, exactly the point which they are talking about. So we are talking about companies having audit firms or external auditors or public auditors, what we call it, and there is a lot of service provider who are giving different services to all of them. And it is not a centralized thing that, okay, I am a large organization, I should have my own team, I should have it up. No, you have a team which is acting as a kind of a PMO, a project management office. Everything is going to be decentralized. So whether we like it or not, that's something which looks like the future in terms of an open platform. And that's how we are talking about, Audit 4.0, which is in the line with Industry and Revolution 4.0. Now, both these things are leading to something which we call adoption of new technology, especially on the AI and ML side. And friends, why I want to talk about ML specifically, because all of you know artificial intelligence is a bigger area. When we call it artificial intelligence, we are talking about something which can mimic anything which can mimic a human intelligence. And that can be in natural language processing, which we all have been using like Alexa, OK Google, and Siri. It could be something which we can be using in other areas. But one of the very interesting, powerful tool is the concept of machine learning. Machine learning, if I have to just give you one example of how it differentiates the whole thing up, let me just tell you one example, and I think that will give you a thing. If you guys are a big fan of technology audit or anything as such, I'm sure you've heard about IBM in 1998 did a test. It was a kind of a media kind of thing where they brought out something called as a Deep Blue. There was a Gary Kasparov who was the world champion of chess at that point of time. Gary Kasparov versus it was Deep Blue, and it was a big hit. People were writing. And I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but Gary Kasparov lost to Deep Blue. Now, the computer, which was made by IBM at that point of time, it was basically, very interestingly, a logically coded application. The whole chess program was actually, hard coded into that. If this happens, you need to do this. If this happens, you need to do that. And the kind of cost which they took was something around upward $10 million. Now, that was something in the 2001, that 98 started, that they went for 2-3 years. If you have seen one of the very nice documentary on AlphaGo, AlphaGo is actually, Go is a kind of a strategy game which is played in South Korea, North Korea, and China extensively. It's more complex than chess, okay? And there was a kind of a team called AlphaGo, which is basically a Google Deep Science team. They actually trained the complete program using machine learning. And the cost was less than $50,000 in terms of the making of the system. Now, can you think of that? Here, I'm teaching the machine to learn. And if you have been hearing about the self-driving car, they work on the same concept. They will make the car goes into multiple things. And they start identifying all these things. So these are, fence, this is pedestrian, this is bike, this is sign symbol. And based on that, it tries to take decisions. So you are not hard coding any of the thing that this is a correct. You are making it learn. In cancer research, whether this cancer, this actually tumor is actually cancerous or not, melanoma or not, or benign, they would actually use the images which has been taken and feed it into the system. And the system is able to predict it well. They are actually using it right now. And it has been better than human expert, because human expert, sometimes if they are actually tired and all things, they will not do a decision in the same manner what we are looking for. So what is this machine learning all about? I just want to talk about in a very basic, not a technical terminology. I would like to talk it in a terminology which basically a finance or audit professional should understand. Earlier, what we used to do is we used to define the logic that this system should work in this manner. This is the logic which is there. Based on the logic, friends, we used to do the programming. Based on the programming, we used to say this is the data source which you have to read, and then I get the result. But machine learning based approach of problem solving is very different. I don't give the logic. I just give the machine a data set for training. Let's say I'm just giving one quick example. Think of a situation. Let's say I have around 200,000 vendors. And I take this 200,000 vendors, I take some 50 parameters of each vendors. Let's say their name, when they were incorporated, whether it's a partnership firm or proprietorship or a company like this, or do they have their own website? Do they have their GST number? I'm just giving you numbers, like 50 parameters I take. Now there are 200,000, set of people. Now, what happens is, if I give it to an expert like Deepji or anyone else, they will see the whole thing for 10 minutes, and they will say, out of this 100 items which you are giving it to me, this 10 looks suspicious. We need to basically think to that. It can be any reason. It can be a gut feeling also, but any professional, if he goes through it based on the experience of the industry, he can say that. Now, imagine if I can actually put that knowledge, that record that knowledge and put it in for all the 200,000 things. And I can keep on running it again and again, because human can see things into maybe 2-dimension or 3-dimension maximum. For a machine, it doesn't have to see it. So it actually creates its own learning model. It says, okay, this is what it is. Yeah, it's possible that the learning model will be skewed. It may be possible it is not properly done. It's fine, but it will learn it out. And based on that, the machine does the programming. You don't have to do that, and you get the result. And that is an amazing kind of area which can work it out, because you are just giving the data set for training, and the machine is learning based on that. If I have to go for it, there are different set of, we call it up, and everyone is coming out with new. But think of main as supervised and unsupervised learning. In the supervised learning, I tell the machine also, if this is the input, this should be the output, and just try to see if there is any kind of variation. In unsupervised, I'm actually, I'm doing basically an exploratory data analysis. I'm not knowing what is going to come. So I just say, okay, here is the data. See this data and tell me, do you see any anomalies? And the machine is good enough to do feature extraction. And based on that, it makes its own algorithm. Yes, you need to audit the algorithm, maybe it's possible. And based on that, I can have my predictive models, I can have my grouping of object, which is classification issues, or I can have more annotated data. And this, friends, exactly helps me in doing a lot of things which I would have not been able to do it. Let me maybe show you one example here, just to interrupt it. I have maybe 3-4 things which are there. Okay, let me start with the one which you love the most. Travel and entertainment area. Okay. Now, travel and entertainment area is one area where we all know that there are going to be a lot of issues which get there. Now, here, this is actually a kind of a aging analysis and other things which you are seeing on the screen is done based on machine learning. You are actually using an association out. So all the things we are trying to do, there's no rule base or anything out here. The complete thing is being worked out, friends, based on the machine going through old set of data of how the junior employees are working, how the senior guys are working, what are the association in terms of domestic travels, what is the association in case of international travel, and based on that is saying, okay, these are the guys which looks like there is something not okay with them, and why don't you try to work on that. Similarly, I have one very interesting thing which is actually on vendor risk management. And friends, this is based on their past performance. See, I can always go to one vendor and say, okay, just put it up. This is one of the vendor lists which is there. And this ranking which you're seeing, it is basically not done on a parameter which you and me would like to do that. This is basically the whole risk matrix is done based on how a vendor is being going for a long time. It could be just one of the things. And you can see which are the high risk guys and all things. So you will ask me a question, okay, Anand, what is the logic behind that? The logic is very simple. The logic which you are building it, you use a concept called, I'm actually showing you isolation forest. And isolation forest is one very interesting thing where every data element regarding this gentleman or this vendor is seen in an isolated manner. It is not like combined. There's no correlation being actually decided on. And the machine basically sees this data and read it with, okay, how this data is related to this vendor vis-a-vis other vendor. I can maybe just try to show you one more example. I have four, but okay. Yeah, isolation forest only I show you. Okay. Just a moment. So isolation forest. Now here, there are transactions which are happening. So we are talking about some of the invoices which has been processed and the transaction has been worked out. Now you may ask question, I mean, it doesn't make sense how you're trying to bring it up there. Now this prediction level, what you are seeing, friends, it's actually not being done based on any rule. It is based on feeding the data in the system and let the system decide which are the transactions which are looking to you are actually having more deviation. And based on that, you're trying to see, okay.
Anand, sorry to disturb you again, gone slow. Sound is again a problem.
Oh, is it? Okay, I'm sorry. Is it better?
Yeah, now it is.
Okay, sorry. So this is what I was trying to tell you, that it's actually, coming out and as an output, we see these points where the machine is trying to do that. So if I have to bring it out, how does it make sense? It makes sense in one way that I get a funnel approach done. When I say funnel approach, we are literally swimming in data. Huge amount of data is being generated every day by the systems. Now, does it make sense for me to actually do a postmortem, or can I actually keep it, all my data based on my system and based on my high level logic, I put it in my, machine learning models and tell me which of the transaction out of maybe, 200,000 line item, I want 50 line item, which you think are really an anomaly. I will not use the word fraud or I will not use the word deviation. I'm using the word anomaly. And it will just give me an idea that, okay, these are the things which I need to look into. These are the things which I would have to deep dive into. And friends, one of the most interesting thing, I have a couple of use cases which I'll be discussing with you in my next 20 minutes. But the idea is there are not one technology which is making it possible. There are a lot of technology which are there. This slide took me some time to make it, and I was trying to see most of them are open source, which are you're seeing on the thing. So you are dealing with a huge, large volume of data presently. You are actually dealing with external data sources also, or what we call it big data, which is like different thing. I may actually read data from PDFs also, invoices and all things, and try to bring it out there. Some unstructured data, photographs and other things, where I try to check the photographs, geotags or any information out there. Use statistical modeling, as I was telling you. Use machine learning as part of that thing, and all these things, because machine learning is going to basically try to do to that. You have to think of how you're going to present the data also to, let's say audit committee or anything. So that is allows you to do a real-time interactive visualization. But there is one challenge of this one. Machine learning requires a huge amount of data. If you have a very less data, it is not going to add much value out there. If you have, a data set which is really, really small, then machine learning can't do it, because then it will become a biased machine learning. The more the data you have, you give 2 years, 3 years, 4 years data, you will see amazing result which comes up, because it keeps on learning it up. Yeah, one of the biggest problem which you may have it, and it happens with many a time in my laptops also, your motherboard will go for a toss, because it will actually have a lot of pressure on your machines, even your, not on your processor, but it will have a process, on the motherboard. But it gives really interesting results. And those results can be actually taken from a perspective of new insight. I just go back to this one. Unsupervised learning has been something which has given us amazing result in terms of things which we have never thought of. And that is really great, because you are trying to see things into new perspective, which we would have not done it. And to discuss more on that, there are some interesting use cases, which I would like to talk about. But before I go into the use cases, how does the whole architecture look like if you have to build it up yourself and you try to use it? this is a kind of a sample architecture, which I'm just talking about. We have all heard about the 3-tier architecture. You can have a front end, which can be any web browser or kind of, a tool like Tableau. I was just showing on Tableau or any of these things which is there. And on the back end, you have all this other things which are running. And it looks complex, guys, but let me tell you, it's very, very simple. And something which you can actually play around with that. If you have a idea that, okay, let me get my hand dirty, a lot of people can actually try to work it out. And ultimately, this is an illustrative idea. I just want to talk about some of the success stories of ML in business use. So which can actually help you in terms of knowing it up. And I just have sanitized some of the information, but they're all actually being done, been there, done it kind of stuff. And I would say you can actually start using it because it can be focusing on accounts payable, bad debts, which is prediction of customer default, especially in the retail sector, very interesting. Spend analytics. Now, I'm sure you are hearing a lot about the term spend analytics, thanks to Accenture. Accenture has been on the forefront of doing so many sessions on spend analytics. And that is the kind of area which gives you a little bit of interesting insight, which people have never thought of. And if an organization is very cost conscious organization, I would say spend analytics is something which very interesting area to do that. Area of GL code reviews, where we can see whether you are actually using the correct GL code based on the machine learning, based on the prediction of the last way, how you have been using it. One of the standard one of finding collusion with vendors, contract award, how we can actually do that. And yes, banking, Basel III, if we are all aware of, it has actually been talking about one of the very interesting things that you need to use AI. That's a kind of one of the very interesting thing I like about Basel III is they are actually telling banks, please use AI. They are actually, it's a kind of a mandate which has been coming up. Now, we know there is I used to be working for Infosys. I know how Finacle works. I know how, banks, which is used by, State Bank of India work. But what we need to understand is core banking systems are not meant to do a lot of things. They are really a TPS. They are transaction processing system. They actually have a huge amount of data. If you have to predict it up, you have to either build up modules, you have to actually do that. And banks can actually utilize this extensively. And the last one, which I've already shown you, T&E. T&E, why we say it's a great area. If you're using software like Concur, or if you're using any other system which is there, we all know one of the challenge which happens is you have a lot of line items, a lot of transactions which are happening, but the value of per transaction is very less. Now, can we automate that? Can we actually build up models which can predict, okay, these are the transactions you need to deep dive into because this looks suspicious and rest of the things are all good. So we are actually going not a subjective mode. We are going in an objective mode. We are just not doing that. I have a hunch, that's why I'm doing it. I'm doing a decision which is based on data. And that decision which is based on data can help me try to do that. Let me just go one by one in each of this area. This accounts payable concept, this was basically for a company which was having operation in 100 countries. And they basically wanted to, analyze proactively monitor any fraud which is happening. So they wanted to just see that, any kind of corruption and prevent and fraud can be prevented. FCPA and other requirements are also there. So they started with a very interesting POC of 50 rule base, which was basically saying that here is the master data, here is the transactional data, which is from SAP and Ariba. And then they took the third party data from DNB, AML list, restricted party, SEC data, all of the things. And using machine learning, the whole model was built. And this model identified or deep dive into all transactions which look something is not okay. And that was the idea to do that. And it was a very interesting outcome because there was a recovery of a dual payment because there was a kind of two companies which were there. And one company has taken over the other company and there was a dual payment which went. And that created a one thing. Because we all know in any ERP like SAP Oracle, there is a control for dual payment. But we also know it can be overridden by multiple ways. So that was a very interesting thing which happened. They blocked a lot of suspicious vendors. Around 21% of the vendors were suspicious later, and they blocked it and they went into kind of approach that one by one we are going to take care of that. And they were able to define some key fraud indicators which earlier were not talked about. So this was actually basically a kind of idea of ensuring that in accounts payable function, how can we use machine learning? The second example I would like to talk about is on spend analytics. And this was very interesting because here, the whole challenge was that you have more than 500 million row of data every year, which need to be looked into. And you have to done, earlier they were doing it up with 50 people. So what is spend analytics? I just explained it to you. Now, are we classifying all our cost correctly? Are we having some internal or external benchmarking of that? Are we able to do the variance from budgets? And what are the key cost drivers? And are there some hidden cost driver which we have never thought of? Like in this case, this organization has one very interesting finding. They found that their office in Philippines is the most expensive office in terms of real estate. You would have thought it may be New York or Mumbai or other places, but it was Philippines. Due to some reason, then there was a lot of question asked that why we are actually doing this and all the things. But it gave an idea, which, insight, which was not there, because no one ever thought of looking at that. But when machines are doing, they are actually agnostic to the biases which human may have. We humans are always aware with some biases. And that was a very interesting thing which came out of this. The third example, very quickly, I wanted to do that. It was basically to find out a kind of, finding out if there is any kind of collusion with the vendors. And here, friends, it was more from perspective of seeing, is there any kind of chances that this, frauds are happening? And it was based on totally big data, related party transactions, trying to see all this information. And I'm sure all of you have heard about one very interesting concept, which is called as, web scraping. So you can actually do web scraping to get a lot of information which may not be there otherwise, and that can be looked into. Okay. Coming to the next one, it is actually one very interesting thing where this was actually a prediction of check bounce for an FMCG company again, and they wanted to know that, can we know which is of my dealer check is going to bounce? Because they used to always have a check, and they found a couple of very interesting trends. The trends was something like this, that before the check bounce was going to happen, the dealer is going to use his maximum credit limit. Many of his transactions will have some faltering. He will be paying the minimum required, which is required to be paid for, making sure he's active. Like that, a lot of early warning system which would done. And that was also connecting with, this was very interesting because the default was 0.5% of all the checks we are coming. And if I can actually predict it up, I can take some kind of preventive measure to ensure that this kind of things don't happen again. Now, those were the things which were something which was looked into in terms of how we can do that. Coming to NPA, this is my favorite area. This is an area where you can actually do a kind of a pretty interesting review of all the non-performing assets of a bank. And based on the past data, if it is fed into the system, we can actually take more, I would say, ideas in terms of what are the patterns and what are the things which tells us why it is happening and how we can actually overcome that. Last but not least, the T&E things I already talked about, that you're trying to analyze all the internal data and external data, trying to see information from the World Wide Web, you're trying to see the policy exceptions, and all those things you're trying to not do based on rules, you're trying to make the machine try to work on that. So friends, the whole idea was to be able to use machine learning effectively. But having said that, this is the good part of the whole story, that you have a lot of options, a lot of things, and I'm sure you would be having a lot of idea yourself that, okay, can this be done or not? And that is something which is good. But what about, what is the algorithm which is getting built? Is it the right algorithm or not? Now, that is the question which is, I think, more relevant than actually what you can do with that. And this is something which people are talking about, that these algorithms, can they be biased? Let me give you one example, very quick example. I'm sure you've heard about one of the very interesting case study on biased algorithms. So what happened was in California, they built a kind of automated system, which based on machine learning is going to predict that in which area or which location the pilot cars or this police cars or the which keeps on going in the night and all things, the pilot cars are going to be there in different areas of California. So it will basically say, okay, this is the location you should go and park it yourself because this is a high crime area. And if there is a presence of a police car out there, we all know, we have seen it, the police car's presence itself will bring down that thing. So that was the whole concept out there. Once the system was live, just like a Skynet, when it went live, it became self-aware and it just says humans are the most dangerous thing for him. And he wanted to kill all the humans. The moment the system went live, after 3 months, when there was a review which was done, they found that all the cars are not going into the crime area, high crime area. They are going into all the black neighborhood areas. Now, if you're going in a black neighborhood area, it is basically means the system is becoming racist. It actually take it up that all the black neighborhood are by default, crime prone areas. Now, when they actually try to see what was the reason for that, the problem came is ultimately there are some weightage which has to be given, and the weightage given to whether this locality is a white locality or a black locality, the weightage was more than 70% which was given to that. So it actually just took it, okay, this is the 70% thing, and it worked on that. So that kind of thing is very important. So the idea, the challenges which are there in auditing of AI, we have to have a good business understanding why we are using this AI. Because, I'm sure you would come across a lot of people who will say that, oh, we used ML, because ML is a good word to sell and all thing, but it didn't work out. Okay. So the reason why it couldn't have worked out, it could be multiple points, but we need to see from a perspective of, first, do we have a good business understanding? Do we have a good data understanding? Just because there is some data or the absence of data could change your model, differently. So we need to have a good idea about that. The third point, which becomes very important, is data modeling, which is, based on the data preparation, you will do the modeling of the data, that how it looks like. Like I gave an example that before I actually run the whole model, I will try to ask one of the human to test it, what he would do and how it will basically work it out. Because the whole idea of machine learning is I'm trying to mimic the humans. As a human expert, what they would have done, I'm trying to do that. And based on that, the models, I need to evaluate the models before it is deployed. And evaluation is basically maybe on a small data set or maybe a kind of existing data set which I want to test it up there. Then there are deployment and the change management process which need to be done in. Nowadays, I'm seeing a new trend right now where organizations are mapping their risk control metrics to the exact model. So they said, okay, for this control, this is the model which is running. All the exceptions which come from this model, I'm going to take it out. So it's interesting. This is new kind of thinking process which people are doing it. And once it is done, the operation of the models and production, in performance has to be looked into. But whatever we talk about here, one of the key things which we have to still look in, these are the challenges which are there, is to see 4 key areas which we can actually look into. And this 4 key area is, do we have an audit baseline? When I say, friends, an audit baseline, what I'm trying to bring out here is, do we know that this is exactly what we are trying to work it out? This model which we are deploying, we are talking about Skynet, and we don't want the Skynet to actually become Skynet. We want to have it the best or the good part of that. We have to review it up. In fact, there is something called as Algorithm Association, American Algorithm Association, which basically has given some interesting, insight into this, that whenever people are getting algorithms and they're using it, there are chances that biases can creep it. I remember, long back when I was at Goldman Sachs, we used to have a VWAPS algorithm, which was used for algo trading. And all of you know that if you just do a Google of algo trading disaster, you will find a lot of algo trading disaster which has also happened. But luckily, you will not find Goldman Sachs name there because they were actually very, very careful in terms of, we were lucky to audit that algorithm, because the idea was that you will not leave anything into the real world without having a proper stress testing of that being done, seeing it how it is going to perform in events which we can't even think of. So the audit baseline is very, very important. That what is the baseline which you are trying to bring it out. The second point, friends, is a very close inspection of the data and the review of the code. The idea is, though the code may be generated by the system itself, we need to understand how the system is thinking. In fact, I would highly recommend you to watch the documentary on AlphaGo. It's a 1.5 hour documentary on YouTube. You will understand that they have found some very interesting pattern in AlphaGo. They found that AlphaGo, every time it learns, every time it basically play against a competitor, it basically mimic how that other person is also playing. It will just observe it for some time. Machine learning has that very interesting pattern that it can learn from new set of data in a different way. So we need to have a close inspection of data. Let me give you an example. Let's say there is a kind of a restaurant in US, all of you heard about Chicken Phil. Chicken Phil is like big chain which is there all across US. And I was talking to one of the lady who actually heads the data science for audit there. And she was saying that we had a predictive model which will basically try to tell us what is going to be our sales forecast all across the regions, different point of time. Now, they have actually stopped that system right now because during the COVID time, we all know it was a lot of abnormalities which were there. And in statistics, there is a kind of a thing. Whenever you have an abnormal or a black swan event, that data should not be used. Again, there are always two school of thoughts. I'll not go into that debate because statisticians also fights a lot on that. So we have to have a close inspection of the data we are feeding into and also the review of the code, because machines learning, the concept of machine learning is to make them autonomous. And if you make them autonomous, there are a lot of things which we need to work on. So also we have to see the very interesting test. I learned it long ago that if I'm doing a DA or data analytics exercise in my audit, the same step which I have taken, if anyone else also does it, he or she should also get the same output. That is the concept of reproducibility. Now, same concept comes here also. The reproduction of or the part of the model which we are training, testing or scoring, and the performance measure which are coming. So can we actually look into that in that manner? Can we see it for ourselves that, okay, here is a set of information, and is it working in the manner we would like it to work? Is it actually having all that kind of things or not? Last but not least, we need to, usually in machine learning, I just told you about one about, isolation forest. There are hundreds of models which are there, hundreds of statistical models which are there. Usually what we used to do is, we k-mean and other things which are there. Many a time at the initial stage, we used to run multiple models to try to see how the output differentiate in different models. And we used to see at what level we are getting, the highest predictability in terms of it. So it takes some time to develop this model, to try to run it. And it can actually give us also the, deficiency which are there and how we can prevent it. So you run multiple models. So you can try random forest, you can try isolation forest, you can try the other ones also which are there. And then we can actually be sure about that, okay, this is something which makes sense. This is coming, which is closest to that. And if I put it in the past data, this is how the prediction has come. And here we can be sure about the data set which is there. So friends, these are the kind of thing we can actually work with. So just to summarize what I was actually trying to talk about, friends, when we are talking about the Skynet, one of the things which we need to understand very clearly is Skynet is a concept which is there for a long time. AI, if you're talking about, there is a paper which was published in MIT in 1964. So they are actually talking about pattern recognition and all the things since 1964. It was only a kind of a challenge was they didn't have enough computing power at that point of time to do that. So the first thing we need to understand is autonomous machines and machines which can actually self-learn are the future, and it is actually disrupting multiple businesses. Finance and audit is also going to be disrupted, and that's something which we can actually use it to best of our ability, because it's going to be something, a tool in our hand which gives us more insight than what we can think of. Second thing which we need to understand is the most important part of AI, the ML part or machine learning, is a concept which can be, it's nothing but statistics, which can be used by us in different phase of our businesses. I'm using the word phase at the time what you're doing, as well as different functions of the business, both from perspective of finance as well as audit, to be able to have a better insight into what we are doing, how we are doing it. Third, there are a lot of use cases which are there, and I showed you some of the examples, but you Google it out, there are hundreds of use cases which people are talking about right now. And I'm sure you know your businesses better than anyone else. So you would actually yourself come across some interesting use cases which can be utilized by you in manner which you deem fit. But ultimately, it is not a rocket science. It's a very simple concept of statistics. I think, when I got into that in 6, 7 years back, someone told me, do you know class 10 statistics? I said, yeah, I know that much. They say, is enough. If you know class 10 statistics, that is the only thing we need to know. Linear regression and all that kind of thing, concept which are there, that's something plays it all. So we need to do that. And the last point which I want to talk about, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to get your hands dirty, which basically means it's a kind of experimental systems which are there. It gives you a kind of insight, but we should be knowing how it can add value. It will take some time before it can actually stabilize in your organization, because even if let's say, for example, if I have an iPhone and you have an iPhone, both of us will have Siri. But do you think your Siri and my Siri are same? No, not really. The way you have trained it, the way you're interacting with that, your Siri learns. The way I am interacting, my Siri learns. So it's actually going to be the same model with a different set of data is going to work differently. So it's actually no one size fit all, but there are some fundamentals which can be used. And last but not least, we need to audit them. We cannot take them just directly on the face value. You need to review it up. You need to basically update them and see for yourself how it can add value in the organization, and then take that forward. So that's from my side, Deepji. I thought I met the time exactly 8 o'clock. So I've not exceeded my time, and I would be more than happy to take any questions or any query, any doubts. Feel free, friends. I know it's a little technical sessions, but feel free if you have even any simple doubt or also, no problem.
I think thank you very much, Anand. We will wait for the questions in the chat box or Q&A. Yes. I can just summarize that, it was a wonderful talk. What has come out very clearly is that auditors will have to get onto the bandwagon of machine learning and AI. They have to start experimenting with open source programs. They have to have a plan on, because businesses are going to use the technology or already are using the technology. Right. So auditors will have to get onto the bandwagon. Early on 10, 12 years back, I used to always say that, the businesses used a 4th generation technology or 5th generation technology, and auditors were on the 2nd generation technology. Right, so sir. Because the businesses 10, 15 years back had already started using ERPs, dashboards, etc. Yes. And auditors were still struggling with basic tools, Office, Excel, Word, etc. So now the time is right. And I also find across the country and across the world that auditors have finally adjusted to businesses and are, in tune, in sync with the businesses, and are using machine learning and AI products. We also know for a fact that in US and in North America, a lot of experiments are happening in bigger firms where they can roll out AI products for external audit, internal audit, forensic auditors across the world. So they are experimenting on a lot of AI products, machine learning products, solutions, which can be easily rolled out across the world to auditors and which will be adopted worldwide. Also, there are a lot of companies, organizations which are giving out open source programs or paid solutions which are available, which can be used by auditors or finance professionals worldwide. So I think this was a very interesting overview of what is possible, and especially the 5 case studies which you presented. I think that speaks a lot on how it is being used. I find in the chat box, okay, Rajesh Chakote has talked about, can we have a detailed session on certain models of course on payment terms? Of course, we can talk about having a detailed presentation. Sure. Another question is, how can an audit professional with very little IT background make a career in AI and ML? So Anand, over to you.
Okay. So Vivek, I think there is, you don't require too much of
Anand, little louder.
Yeah. So my point is that you don't require a lot of IT knowledge at all. To be honest, I'm telling you. And Deepji would agree to me. There are a lot of nowadays low code and no code platform. We call it LO, low code and no code. And they are like basically all ready-made things which are there. Having said that, a basic, see, when we got into Excel, we also learned macros. I'm just talking about 5-10 years back. We also learned how, this things works, how does the, different concept works. So a fundamental things which will be required, Vivek, but I would say you don't require to have a lot of programming knowledge and all that kind of thing. You should only, if you have to use it also, I don't know, I'm just trying to jump the gun, but I'm just trying to show you one interesting site. I don't know if you have actually been there. This is my favorite site. I go there.
There is a related question which I'll just tell you. There's one more. Dilip Punjabi who's asked, as a finance or audit guy, to what extent we need to get trained in technology? What is the minimum time frame to get oneself acquainted? So this is a similar question. So I said, let me just bounce that also to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I would say, if you are, usually, because in our organization, and Deepji is a chartered accountant, I'm a chartered accountant. We work mostly with chartered accountant, and all the chartered accountant only work on this. I would say a chartered accountant would require maybe 3 to 6 months to be able to be very, very conservative into all these things. It's not some rocket science. I personally know, Rajiv Gupta, who's actually done a couple of courses on that. He himself does a lot of, hands-on things at Flipkart and all things. So there are a lot of people. I'm just trying to show you one example of this, platform, which is called H2O.ai. This is a very interesting thing, because here you don't require to know programming knowledge. You should know your data properly, and you should know which AI model you want to use them. And you can plug it out here on this one. And it basically will give you, and this is an open source thing, and it works very extensively. It has like add-ons and other things which can work on any way you would like to do that. So Vivek sir and Dilip sir, what I would like to bring it to your notice is, you just need to, are you ready to give like 2 hours every day for 6 months? You have to just go into that, understand the concepts and other things. If you think I am technical, it's actually a misconception. I'm also not technical, or I'm not doing a thing. I know the concept, I know the things. It is just execution part. You should be knowing your data more better. You should know the statistical model you want to do that. Don't worry too much about technology. That's something which can be handled. And there are a lot of platforms which are there, which are, we call that low code, no code platform. So if you know the basic, you can use Excel, you'll be able to do that. I hope that answers your question, Vivek ji and Dilip ji.
Thank you very much, Anand. I think I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
More importantly, for an auditor or a finance professional is to understand the environment and to know what do you want to get done.
Yes.
Because there's so much of technology solutions available. There's so much of things which can be done today: bots, RPA, machine learning, AI, open source programs, paid solutions which are available. There's so much availability of solutions in the market. But what does one want to achieve? What is it that you want to achieve in a particular organization? I think that clarity has to come in terms of the domain knowledge and where do you want to go.
Perfect.
And then select the solution as per the need.
I agree. And actually, that is what we always call it, Deepji. What you rightly said is, you have to be product agnostic. You have to just go and see which is the best solution. If you know our data and problem statement, as you rightly said, a person can easily go in to get into that. So that would be the best option to take care of that. Yeah.
Sure. In fact, many ERPs themselves have a lot of solutions where you can build algorithms and do away with a lot of processes.
Yes. In fact, I know SAP has a kind of a studio, an ML studio, which has come. There are a lot of other organizations which are coming out with that. And again, I'm telling you, it is all about what you would like to do. I would say there is a kind of a, feasibility part. There is 100 of things are there, but it all depends on the starting point, how we take care of that. That's all.
Absolutely. So any other questions, friends? There are no other open questions, but we can always revert to Anand. So I'm just reading out his email. It's there on the screen. Anand at ajafirm.com. So, anybody who wants to get in touch with Anand can feel free to write to him, or you can write to us and we will forward the questions to him. And I think I don't find any other questions. There are no questions on YouTube, which I'm told. So no problem. So Anand, if there are no questions, I think we have not utilized Anand's skills fully in this session, but okay, all up to the participants. So thank you very much, Anand. It was a really good session, excellent session, because you laid out the path what an auditor or finance professional should be looking to the future.
Yes, sir.
There's no doubt that one needs to use machine learning and AI, because large amounts of data, the way the companies are progressing, and we also know the regulations. We are talking about NEFRA, we are talking about
Yes.
what's happening in the environment in India, even in the US. So I think the auditors will have to adapt to it and really be a step ahead. So thank you very much, Anand. Thanks a lot for this session today.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure, and really enjoyed the sharing the thoughts. And as you rightly said, if there is no question, it basically means I was like very good. I just explained everything properly, so it's all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And just before we leave, for all the participants, next week we have Saket Mehra, the practice national leader for automotive sector, coming on, and he'll be talking about analytics in the automobile sector from Grant Thornton LLP. So I think those of you are interested can log on next week at 7 p.m. and enjoy the session on Analytics Wednesday. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot, Anand, once again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.